Hello, beauties. Speaking of beauty, that is the topic of today's episode of Midlife by Human Design. Because I've been thinking a lot about beauty lately. I mean, it is Taurus season. Taurus season is wrapping up this week, actually. But I was out in my gardens this weekend and spent a fair amount of time with some flowers, just in awe of how beautiful nature is and just being present with that beauty. And the sun is transiting gate 8, which is called the gate of contribution. And there's a creativity, a self-expression, a really good design eye vibe to this energy. And I guess all of that just had me thinking about beauty and how we as midlife women beat ourselves up a bit about beauty and kind of lose connection with beauty, I think, or have the potential to do so in midlife as we age. So I wanted to talk about that today and to give us some ideas from a human design perspective as to how we can reconnect with that feeling. Because I think that oftentimes as midlife women, when we are being judged according to a standard of beauty that is all about youthfulness, is all about like no wrinkles, like tightness, like you know the drill. You know the standard of beauty that we are being judged against. And as we age, our bodies naturally change. And it leads to this feeling of I am less than, I am not beautiful anymore, or I am not desirable, or I am not visible, or there's like a lack of vitality even in the same way that you experienced it in your youth. And here's the hard truth. Some of that is absolutely fucking true. You are not your younger self anymore. And plus also, here's the check on what I was saying earlier is that it does not mean that you are less than. I was thinking about what is underneath that feeling of I am no longer beautiful or I don't feel beauty in the same way. And I think it's important to kind of suss out the different layers that may be present for you and just name them. Because by naming them, we are able to feel through them. One of those is grief. This feeling of grieving who you used to be and who you are now and how that's different, and feeling like you've lost that. You've lost who you were and how you looked. So with grief, can you look back on your past self and thank her for the woman that she was, and then come to your present self and feel into that grief while also understanding how far you've come? I think there's also a layer of comparison that contributes to this feeling of loss, or that our beauty is very much changing. Comparison, though, you've probably heard the phrase comparison is the thief of joy. And even when it's comparing yourself to your younger self, to who you were, that is still preventing you from experiencing the joy of who you are now. And one hack I love for this idea is to picture yourself 30 years from now, when you're 80 or 90 or 70 or however old you're going to be when you're 30 years from now. Think about that woman looking back on who you are today? And do you want to reflect on constantly beating yourself up or constantly comparing yourself to what you were like when you were younger? I mean, how much does the woman who is your 80-year-old self want the body that you have now? So, giving yourself some perspective around that, and also remembering, time is not linear. So, whatever. I think there's also this level of invisibility, which I mentioned earlier, but like this feeling of feeling invisible because, yes, after we reach a certain age, society just kind of writes us off. We notice that we see a lot fewer role models for us to be able to look at, to see like, oh, well, how is she aging? How are they approaching this phase of life? And it's crazy to me because midlife women are so fucking badass. Like, we have amazing wisdom and authenticity to share, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. So I think there are a number of different layers under this feeling. And while we feel those things in order to heal them, we also want to recognize that these feelings are oftentimes coming from conditioning, right? Like, beauty to us has equated in approval, like going back to the good girl idea, being approved of, being liked. It has equated to desirability, which has meant that we've been able to partner with somebody, which has meant that we are not alone. Beauty has been performative. It's like performing in order to be seen. And oftentimes it's to be seen by the male gaze. But, I think there's more and more coming out about that. And as we deconstruct some of the gender norms and we understand what happens when the male gaze, basically how the male gaze can lead to abuse or women being taken advantage of. It's like that becomes less and less important. However, I notice it even in my own household when for example, I have to say that our retreat was so liberating in so many ways. And one of those ways was traveling with these 3 other younger women who were helping us. 2 of them helped with workshops and one was our photographer. And they were so uninhibited with their bodies, like tits out all the time, whatever. It's not a big deal. We don't wear bras. What are you talking about? Bras are so out. And I loved it. And then this is such an aside, but it's important because it is related to beauty and especially how we think about beauty. And I've been thinking about boobs recently. And I read something somewhere about not wearing a bra being good for your breast tissue, actually, because your breasts will naturally, which makes sense, form the muscles and the tightness that they need to hold themselves when you are not using a bra. And what I was going to say about being in a household with a bunch of boys and men is that I still feel this need to wear a bra so my nipples aren't hard and out against my t-shirts. And I'm really working on that deconstruction and breaking down that, like, fuck it. If I don't want to wear a bra, I shouldn't have to just because I have men in the house. Like, fuck them. This is my body. So, and it's probably really good for them to just see nipples and not sexualize it. It's just a body part, they got their nipples out all over the place, right? So yes, my little tangent on body positivity and the male gaze and owning your authenticity, owning who you are. So, this conditioning component here, I want you to remember that there is so much of how you feel about your body that is not yours. It's not yours to carry, it's not yours to believe about yourself. It's simply these messages that have been fed to you and programmed into your brain and into your subconscious to believe these things because of the society in which we live. So, this is just a simple reminder that those beauty standards are not what is actually beautiful about you. And if you need some help deconstructing, pulling some of these threads of conditioning where they live in your chart, then book a session with me. I would love, love, love to help you discover your inner beauty and your outer beauty. I am such a good reflector of those things, and I can look at your chart and help you to discern where is conditioning running the show in your life and causing you to miss the beauty that you are and the beauty that you have. So, in terms of human design, I wanted to talk about the G center today because the G center is our self, it's our identity center, it's who we are, and it also houses the magnetic monopole. And this idea of magnetism, I think, is very closely related to beauty. The idea of beauty is having something that looks beautiful visually to you, but also draws you in. And, I'm even just thinking about my gardens and the tulips that are blooming right now and how much I am drawn to them and want to just stand over them and look down into their gorgeous petals and the center of that gorgeous flower and let it soak into my eyeballs because it's just so gorgeous. And for women, for us, honestly, as humans, man, woman, non-binary, whatever your gender preference is and how you identify, you have this magnetism that grows as you age, I believe, if you are being your authentic self. Okay? If you are deeply connected to yourself, that is magnetic. That is beauty. And I invite you to think about people who maybe aren't generally thought of as attractive or aren't like the traditional attractive, but who really pull you in, and think about what is it that pulls you to them? And is there some element of authenticity there? Is there something you sense about authenticity there? Because the truth is that it can be hard to find role models, especially as women, who are aging, who are truly being their authentic selves, right? I mean, think about Jamie Lee Curtis's approach to aging has been very much, I'm just going to let nature do its thing. Like, however I age is how I age, and I'm still going to be me. And that is gorgeous. But then we compare her to somebody like Demi Moore, who is doing the opposite. She's taking the opposite approach and is using every last tool that she has to keep her body looking young through plastic surgery, through whatever, et cetera, et cetera. And I have to believe that we weren't ever meant to spend our whole lives trying to look untouched by them. Like every little wrinkle that we have is evidence of our life lived. And plus also, this is something I still struggle with, because I also very much want to keep my body healthy. I want to continue to be able to do the things that I am doing throughout my lifetime that I am still doing currently. And my face, especially, I have started to use more skincare recently and just started caring a lot more about that. And I think part of beauty comes from the willingness that you have to put in toward your self-care and to take good care of the vessel that you live in. And I guess I have conflicting feelings about somebody like Demi Moore, for example, the Demi Moore approach versus the Jamie Lee approach. And ultimately, I think this is where it comes back to the G center and knowing yourself. And me, I have an undefined G center, and over half of the population is in this boat. 54% of us have an undefined G center. So it's easy for me as an undefined G to look at these two examples and feel like, which one resonates? Which one feels most like me? And the truth for me personally is that it's somewhere in the middle. I think it's like, and not to say that Jamie Lee doesn't do anything to take care of herself. Of course she does. They're both amazing women. However, I think for me and for you, what I'm encouraging you to do is really tune into you and your truth and think about, how do you actually feel about your body and how you look? And this will probably change day to day. But I'm also inviting you to think about, why do you feel that way? And that is such a huge question. But why do you feel the way you feel about how you look? What influences are causing you to feel that way? And most importantly, are those feelings a reflection of your truth, capital T truth, who you truly are? Because this grief that we tend to feel about losing beauty or no longer being, quote, as beautiful as we used to be or whatever, all of that bullshit, it's actually grief about feeling disconnected from who we truly are. It's that disconnection from self that is the root of that grief. Because our looks change throughout our lives. And we need to think about, who are we now in this new phase of midlife? And I know that a lot of you listening to this podcast are in the messy middle. You're in the midst of redefining who you are. Many of you have been mothers for the last couple of decades. So now you are redefining that, now that your kids don't need you as much, and that's not as much of your identity as it once was. You have this wide open space. So as a midlife woman, you have so much magnetism potential, I think, because you have nothing to lose, really. We have far fewer fucks if we let ourselves have far fewer fucks. And we have all these hard-earned life lessons. So we get to this point where it's like, we don't need the bullshit anymore. And the beauty standards of our culture are frankly bullshit. So I want to offer up some ideas for reclaiming beauty in a few different ways. So the first thing is through embodiment. And what I mean by embodiment in this case is constantly thanking your body for what it does for you, what it is doing for you, where it takes you, what experiences it gives you, all of the things that your body is capable of. Being in constant gratitude for it, daily gratitude, taking a moment in the mirror in the morning to say, thank you. Oh my God, thank you, you gorgeous human. You are fucking amazing. And I don't care if shit is hitting the fan and you've had a hell of a week, or you know that the day is going to be challenging. Give yourself 5 seconds to just look into your own eyes and tell yourself, you are amazing. You are beautiful. Thank you so much for being my home in this lifetime. Another thing that I think we can do in midlife is, as we are redefining ourselves, this is a chance to look at style. And I had to mention this because we are in this gate 8 transit, and gate 8 is so much about like this design eye and creativity. So giving yourself the opportunity to go into a store, go shopping for yourself, and use your authority while you're shopping. So all of you generators and manifesting generators, what is drawing you in? What is pulling you? What parts of the store are pulling you toward them? What colors are pulling you toward them? And notice when your brain starts coming in like, oh my God, I couldn't wear that bright yellow. No way, I couldn't do that. Instead of the fact that your body is drawn to it and you feel excited about it, you get that sacral hit. So what are you drawn to? If you're an emotional authority, when you try on your clothes, when you pick out a few things and you try them on in the dressing room, how do you feel in them? So use your authority. And if you're not sure what your authority is, go back and listen to episode 2. It's on authorities. It's at the very beginning of the podcast. And use your authority when you are shopping. Use that to help you redefine your style in this phase. I'm also going to make a case for making your spaces beautiful around you, surrounding yourself with beauty, because it matters. I was listening to another podcast recently, and they were talking about beauty and the Tartarian era, which is apparently this era that has been erased from history, but it speaks to a lot of the architecture that is about fine details. So thinking about what is the beauty of your surroundings, and remember that your environment matters. This is also part of your human design. It matters for your mental health, for your physical health, for your vitality. So paying attention to that and thinking about how can you bring beauty into your environment. Another way to bring beauty into your life is through self-expression. And again, we're in this gate 8 transit. I'm going to pair this with my next point, which is creativity. So how can you be creatively self-expressive? How can you share more of yourself? And even if others aren't down for it or they don't like it or whatever, if it makes you feel good, if you value it and it feels beautiful to you, that is what is important. And then the last thing I want to say is about your truth and your authenticity. And at every juncture, at every choice point that you have, at every decision, how are you honoring your truth? How are you being true to yourself? The more that you can be true to yourself, literally it expresses in your outward nature. Think about the last time that you felt really, really good, for whatever reason that was. The last time that you felt really, really good. And if you caught a glimpse of yourself, or if somebody snapped a photo of yourself, maybe it was you who snapped a photo of yourself, beauty was exuding through you, right? It is that element, that intangible that I am talking about right now with your capital T truth. when you can be in your authentic self, when you can be your capital T true self, that is when you are gorgeous. You are gorgeous. It doesn't matter how many lines you have, how many wrinkles, how much cellulite you have, how much belly fat you got. It doesn't matter because you are exuding beauty. And that is the magnetism. That is what comes from your G center. So I invite you to look at your human design chart. If you don't have your chart, go to my website, of course, lorileesci.com. Go to get your chart. Look at your G center. It's that diamond shape in the center, and see, is it defined or undefined? And think about, how does your sense of self shift? Do you have a consistent sense of self with a defined G center? Do you have an inconsistent sense of self with your undefined G center? And then how can you pull these threads into your life and start redefining what beauty means to you in midlife? Again, if you need support for this, if you want to work on what is it about you specifically that makes you magnetic, then book a session and we can look at your chart and I can help you discern some of that as it relates to how you're redefining yourself in midlife. All right, that's what I've got for you today. I am wishing you, as always, the strength to let go of what no longer serves you, joy to fill your days, and clarity to be who you came here to be.